All right, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to the City of Boise Hearing Examiner public hearing. Just a few things to start off with for this afternoon's proceedings. First off, everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you'll be called upon and unmuted. There is a chat function in Zoom. This is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. And our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team. Then we'll go to the appellant and our applicant, and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association. This will be followed by questions from the hearing examiner. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those that are in person, then those who signed up on the sign-up sheet in advance, and then anyone who raises their hand virtually. If you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each speaker should state their name and address for the record. And then each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant or appellant is allowed time for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the hearing examiner will deliberate and render a decision. And so looking at this afternoon's agenda, first we have minutes acceptance from last month, and then moving on to new business. Item number 1 is a variance at 2514 North Heights Drive with Still Wagon Construction. The planning team is recommending denial, so we will hear that one. Item number 2 is a variance at 2201 South Hervey Street with Rodney Evans and Partners. The planning team is also recommending denial on that one, so we'll hear that. Moving on to number 3, a variance at 1100 South Vista Avenue from BRS Architects. The planning team is recommending approval, and we haven't received any comments on that one, so we can try to place that on the consent agenda. Moving on to item number 4, we have a variance at 2370 South Maple Grove Road, also from BRS Architects. Again, we are recommending approval on that, so we can try for consent there as well. Then number 5, a variance at 1614 West Highland Street from Tony Ching. The planning team is recommending approval there, and we haven't received any comments on that, so we can try for consent there. And then finally, item number 6 is an appeal of an administrative design review approval over at 2502 West Bannock Street. We will be hearing that item, and I do believe we have some folks signed up in advance to testify on that. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Gillespie.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. First of all, quick question for the city. On item 6, how do you pronounce Caitlin's last name?
Manouge.
Manouge, thank you very much. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the regularly scheduled hearing examiner meeting. I'm the hearing examiner. My name is Milt Gillespie. I was hired by the city and approved by the city council and the mayor. I make decisions this afternoon on variances and administrative appeals. Any request to reconsider these decisions must be formally requested in writing pursuant to city code. Tonight, we utilize a consent agenda. That means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and all the terms and conditions, and if there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion or decision by me without further public comment. For the 3 items tonight not on the consent agenda, and any that may come onto the consent agenda, for the items that are not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago by Kevin. Thank you all for attending. And with that, I guess our first order of business is to put the hearing examiner minutes for the regular meeting of February 2nd on the consent agenda. Next, let's turn to item number 3. This is CVA 25-62 at 1100 South Vista Avenue. Is the applicant present? And are you in agreement with the staff report and the terms and conditions? Let the record so reflect they are. Is there anybody here tonight, either online or in person, who would like to testify in opposition to item 3, CVA 25-62 by BRS Architects at 1100 South Vista Avenue? Seeing none, item 3 will be placed on the consent agenda. The next item is item 4. This is CVA 25-80 by BRS Architects at 2370 South Maple Grove Road. Is the applicant present? And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Let the record reflect the applicant's in agreement. Is there anybody here tonight who wishes to testify in opposition to CVA 25-80 at 2370 South Maple Grove Road? No one wants to oppose it, so item 4 will be placed on the consent agenda. Final item is item 5. This is CVA 25-74 by Tony Ching at 1614 West Highland Street. Is the applicant present?
Looks like they are online and
Yes.
to be able to speak now.
We're online.
Thank you, Mr. Ching. Welcome. Mr. Ching, are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Yes, yes, we are.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Ching is in agreement. Is there anybody here tonight who wishes to testify in opposition to item 5, CVA 25-74 at 1614 West Highland Street? Seeing none, item 5 will be placed on the consent agenda. And so without further debate, the consent agenda is approved. It consists of the minutes from Feb 2, 2026, items 3, 4, and 5. And with that, we'll move to new business, and we will hear from Mr. Exton first. This is CVA 26-0001, Stillwagon Construction. This is a variance at 2514 North Heights Drive. And I might also point out, just for the record, that this is CVA 26, which means it's the year 2026. It's a CVA means variance, and 001 means it's our first one of the year. So congratulations, Mr. Stillwagon. You get the order prize. Mr. Exton.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gillespie. Before you this afternoon is a variance request for additional encroachments to a legally non-conforming house. The existing house has received a zoning certificate for the existing footprint. The applicant is requesting to construct an addition in front of the house, which is located within the interior side and front setbacks, as well as a deck in the location of a future detached sidewalk. General location is shown on screen, illustrating the location of the addition in relation to those setbacks that I mentioned. As shown on screen in the project report, the garage and living area are proposed to be approximately 4 inches from the back of a future detached sidewalk. The sidewalk measurement does consist of a 10-foot landscape buffer due to overhead power lines and a 5-foot wide sidewalk, as Heights Drive is a local road. As discussed in the project report, the house contains a dimensionally non-compliant garage. However, the request is not to bring the parking into dimensional compliance. Additional living space is not required under the development code, and there is space in the rear, shown in blue, to add living space if more is desired. Furthermore, the street has developed roughly on the same plane, and the addition would disrupt the predictable development pattern in the area. And as such, the planning team recommends denial, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Exton. Is the applicant present, please? So every time you come to testify, this is for you applicant, but also everyone, if you could just give your name and address for the record, the legal folks really like that. So
Yes,
Thank
Nate
you, sir.
Stillwagon, 2514 North Heights Drive.
welcome, Mr. Stillwagon.
Yeah,
So
good
is
afternoon.
10 minutes good?
Hopefully, yeah.
We'll put 10 minutes on and see where you are.
How am I gonna see the photos that I had sent
they-
you? You're gonna pull them up, are you, or? Well, I'll start and maybe I can like click through some of them. So
Okay.
thanks for your time. And, so I bought this house 12 and a half years ago. It was the only house I've ever lived in our own. I love the neighborhood and the neighbors. It's an old building. It's built in 1949. So it's decaying and needs to be improved and kind of fixed up. So I've been trying to figure out ways to do that. Most of the time I've lived there, it's a slab on grade. It has cinder blocks on the side. So I looked at trying to lift it and just build underneath the existing footprint, but nobody can do it because of the build quality. So that'd be impossible. I look to be able to try to build behind the house, kind of as like that has been selected or discussed. There's no access from the back. You know, I have like this maybe, but I think it's 18 foot. Well, I know it's 18 foot because I just measured it today from my back house to where it goes 20 feet up over 20 feet. And there's no access with big pine trees off the back. There's no access from the sides. I have 5 feet on the upper hill side where it's a 20-foot retaining wall up to the next property. So there's like no way to get machinery in there to be able to build behind it, or, you know, it'd be a reasonable thing. But I've been told by construction companies that that is not something I can do. And then, so it took a long time to be able to come into the, what I'm trying to propose is, because of the slab on grade is, you know, I can only go into the house about a third of it and dig the front down to be able to get like the garage underneath. You know, if I'm going to spend hundreds of $1,000s, I guess, to make my garage that currently is 8 feet by 10 inches by 18 feet by 6 feet and 7 inches, you know, to where I could get a normal vehicle in it and be at the grade, I would probably make a 2-car garage because I'm moving all this land to try to do it. So it seems reasonable, and it's in what has been done in the neighborhood with the recent rebuilds over the last several years. You know, so some of that is just like, I cannot make a build work with that. You know, it's a pretty modest rebuild, and the, you know, so a fair amount, about a third of the living space is actually enclosing like sun deck upstairs that just kind of leaks. So it make the property better and more solid that way. Let me see here. You know, some of those like trying to, you know, the numbers that are being proposed, I don't think are really reality, because like the neighborhood was just built so long ago, nothing is to code. A ton of people's foundations actually go over their property lines. Like there's probably, I don't know, 30% of the houses are they have like foundation that's within 10 feet of their property front line. So it's like taking a potential sidewalk and annexing the front 15 feet of my land in that neighborhood. Like, you just can't make it work. There's retaining walls like that. That'd be awesome if they would have built it that way initially. I'd love to have that, you know, in my neighborhood. But the reality is that's never going to be a possibility. So using like measurements that have been put in there is not what I proposed. I have like 33 feet from my front yard or my front door to the front of my property. I'm trying to get to where it's like 15, not 20 feet, just so I could actually fit a vehicle in there and the allotted space that I could build under it. So, you know, it's not 5 inches from my front property line. It's 15 feet and 5 inches from the front property line that I'm asking for, you know. So one of the variance things was like, there's no undue hardship, but the reality is I can't do anything else with it to try to make that. You know, the second part of his the variance that has been was that you don't conflict with the public interest. Doug has stated there's been no negative feedback at all on this project. In fact, I've only had positive feedback from my neighbors for trying to go forward with this. The reality is I'm going to make the like driveway safer by making it wider. Right now it's a narrow with a retaining wall, so that like field of view and vision is actually worse as it exists. Or if I made it wider, I could actually see, you know, what's up and down the street easier with it. And it'd improve the quality of the, you know, the house, the build, the walls that are decaying because of time. The third part is you're not to have the right or a special privilege not available to other properties. Well, this just this like what I'm doing matches or is less intrusive than the last like 4 remodels on that street. There's one that was at the bottom of the street that is within 15 feet from their property line and the road, and the edge of their garage, which is like a massive 2+ like garage and a big house that took the views out the valley of 3 houses, but got approved. I'm certainly taking nobody's views, and I'm not making that big of a garage either. There's multiple garages that have about 5 feet to the alleyway in the neighborhood, as well as about 10 feet from multiple ones that are in the neighborhood going to the street itself. One of the houses across the street from me has 2 2-car garages. I know that apparently the code is that you get one up to a certain size, which mine doesn't meet. But it's like that hasn't been the reality or the standard of what's been done. And obviously, most people are trying to improve their homes, make it function better in a modern world. The fourth stipulation that I looked at was the impact on public health, safety, and welfare. Like I was saying, I think this does make it safer because the field of views would be safer, the house structure would be safer, the retaining walls would be safer and newer. I do have an existing like handrail that's next to some stairs that go down to where that one car like driveway is. And I hate having that as it exists right now. Not that that goes with this, but like you're talking about safety of the community. There's like always kids that come on my private property and try to grind that rail, and then they like YouTube it, and I'm like, oh my God, the liability seems bad, but that I think would make it safer for the community. And it's just, and there was like a statement on it, like with Doug's report, that it encroaches on the like privacy of the neighbors, which, man, I cannot see how that ever would be the case. It's pretty private how everything is set up, but like, I do not encroach on anybody's privacy with the remodel as it's proposed currently. So, ask you to be positive in the new year and make the first variance probably go forward rather than being negative. We need positivity in this one. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Stillwagon. You can stay nearby. Is there any representative here from the North End Neighborhood Association who'd like to testify on this matter? Okay, hearing none, it's question time for me. My first question is for the city, which is, can you pull up figure 1, which was in the packet? Yeah, can you make it as big as you can? And so you have 3 blocks of texts, and I think they're trying to say where the line is.
Correct.
And so is the line the bottom line of the block of text or the top? Do you know what I mean? It's like, what? So that 20-foot parking setback, is that a line going right across the very top of that text box?
Yes, Mr. Gillespie, that is correct. So this line where my cursor is, that is 20 feet
Okay.
as measured from how the city.
Now
measures
show
on
me
the
where
map.
the 15-foot living space setback is.
Right here.
And show me where and so the blue isn't a setback. The blue is defining the line from which the other 2 are calculated.
That is
The
correct.
top line of the blue rectangle is the 0 line for the setback.
That is correct.
Okay.
But that's like also like taking the 15 feet
Right.
from the
We're
window
going to
that-
get to that.
Yeah, okay.
We're
sorry.
coming. Patience. I have a
I will
method.
try to be better.
I'm trying to work through this. So Mr. Exton, I have a question now on like, where do we get to the definition of the 0 line? So I'm going to read from, I believe it's page 4 of the report, packet page 8. Beginning in the second full sentence, at the top of the page, the development code defines the measurement of front and street side setbacks in 11602 rules of measurement as follows. Front and street side set, I'm going to read all 3 sentences, and I have like questions on several parts because you're not quoting from the code. You're summarizing the code yourself at this point, I think. Front and street side setbacks are measured from the property line or the back of the sidewalk or the location of the future sidewalk, whichever is greater, comma, unless otherwise indicated in a specific zoning district. So help me interpret that. So you measure from which, so does that mean you pick the line that creates the largest possible set? I don't know what whichever is greater means.
Yes, Mr. Gillespie. So first off, that is a direct quotation from code, verbatim. And what that says is whichever is further into the property, because we
So
do
that's
have-
what you're sure it means, that whichever
Yes.
is greater.
Yes,
Because
that is
another
correct.
interpretation could mean whichever is greater in terms of creating the most space. So I was unclear as to what that, let me keep reading. So that's question one. Wait, let me ask a follow-up. Unless otherwise indicated in a specific zoning district. So there's no special zoning district indication here, right? It's just
No.
straight R1A or wherever we are. Next sentence. If there is an existing attached sidewalk, the setback shall be measured from the location of a future detached sidewalk. So is there an existing attached sidewalk?
There is not an existing attached sidewalk, therefore the future detached sidewalk is still the default here. The way that section of code is written out, Mr. Gillespie, is to account for essentially three
Yeah.
different types of streets.
yeah.
Sidewalk, attached
Yeah.
sidewalk, and
Yeah, yeah.
detached.
We've had a lot of attached versus detached
Mhm.
sidewalk conversation around here lately. Front and side. So your interpretation is basically the phrase or the location of the future sidewalk. You're interpreting the location of the future sidewalk is to be a detached sidewalk because that's what the code would call for.
Correct.
And the whichever is greater, you're saying greater in this case means whatever creates the largest setback from the property line, basically. That's what you, so that you're basically saying the way you did it is what you think the code says.
Mr. Gillespie, it's furthest from the location of that sidewalk. We
Got it.
do see instances across the city where a sidewalk will be in an easement, for example. So that sidewalk is fully on someone's property. So it's in that case where we measure from the back of the sidewalk, similar to this example. There's other parts of the city where that detached sidewalk is in the public right of way, and that property line is behind that sidewalk. So in that instance, we measure from the property line.
But basically you're saying the way you're thinking
Mhm.
about it is correct per 11.6-02.
Correct.
Thank you. So that's a long-winded discussion because I was a little bit choppy on the language. Do you have any dispute or any difference?
Well,
You may not like the policy, but we're discussing what it says.
Right. No, like as I read it, when I was talking to his supervisor on the phone before, like last week or whatever, I was like, well, it says whatever is greater, like greater.
Yeah. You had the
20
same question I
20
did.
feet is greater than
Yeah.
5 inches
Yeah.
or whatever's being like stated. And so it's like, that doesn't seem like what the verbatim, what that would read. It's what's greater from the setback
Well,
to
it's
it.
ambiguous as to
It's very-
actually doesn't
yeah.
say how is greaterness measured.
Yeah, is it
So that's
greater,
my issue.
taking a greater amount of like my property away from me for a future sidewalk that like really can't exist in this neighborhood anyway.
Well,
So I was going to bring that up just because like I felt like
Right.
when I read that, it's like, well,
right.
20,
I
like
understand.
the 30 feet that I currently have is
Yeah.
greater than 15.
I understand.
So like I kind of had the same
Yeah.
you, but then like it just seems like it's I hear that has been put into the code recently for
Yeah.
the city, and it's like, but it's like I just don't see how that is a reality with this like one
Yeah.
particular street, just because like you couldn't
Right.
make it happen. You'd have to like move people's foundations that
Right.
currently exist, and
Right.
I'd love to have it, but
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have any further questions for anybody. So with that, we can move to, we did the neighborhood association, so time for public testimony. Okay, so I have a sign up sheet. I have 3 people. We'll go through this sign up sheet. Each person gets 3 minutes. Please give your name and address. And then we'll go to open mic, which is people who are phoning in or zooming in. And then we'll go to anybody open mic here in the room, anyone who wants to testify, even if you didn't sign up. So the first person on the sign up sheet is
Mr. Gillespie, is that the right sheet? I don't think.
Whoops,
That's
wait,
for
wrong
item
sheet.
6.
Okay, my bad. Sorry, I was jumping ahead to 6. Good catch. Is there anybody here who would like to testify on this item tonight? You get your chance right now. Is there anybody online who'd like to testify? Okay, hearing that. So there's no public testimony. So Mr. Stillwagon, You get up to 5 minutes for rebuttal. I'm not sure what you're rebutting. You don't have to take the time if
Yeah,
you
I
don't want.
don't know. Like, I guess the one.
Do you
thing
want to,
I-
you have
oh,
to
sorry.
step to the mic and give
I-
your name and address. and
Yeah.
all.
Nathan Stillwagon, 2514 North of Heights Drive. I guess the only other thing was I didn't show like some of the photos of the neighborhood to actually like, I don't know if that's needed or you believe me, but like, I guess I could show just like how it's set up and what the standard of the houses in the neighborhood is, which I don't think I'm, well, once again, doing anything exotic compared. So like this is a house that took away like three people's views going out the valley. On the bottom edge is the edge of the garage, which is as the street bends down 15 feet from the edge. That's not counting a 15-foot take away, and it's a massive garage. I guess I didn't get the angle to look at that. Maybe the next photo. So once again, that house actually is within 15 feet from the foundation to the road that would have to go as well. That's looking at that big house that was one of the most recent remodels that was approved through here, which is not a one-car garage as indicated for a single family home. And the next one, kind of same. Next one, as you can see, there's a lot of retaining walls. That one actually does have like the foundation of there is at 15 feet from the side of the road. Next one. You could just see like how close everything is built to the road just because this is the way the neighborhood was built. Next, once again, like how close that is to the edges. Next, this is another rebuild that if you had 15 feet taken, that goes to the right at their foundation line, and then they have a large 2-car garage on the side. Next one might show that. Yeah, and the next, how close that is to the road as well if you took 15 feet away, and the next, more of the same. And this one, actually their house is within 10 feet of the property line, front property line. Next, it's the same house, so it's like 10 feet from the side. The two-car garages, so it's like I'm not asking for something crazy for the neighborhood. Next, houses that are right on the edge. Next, this would be trying to take 15 feet out of that. I can't imagine that's going to be safe to put it's going to be about a 12-foot retaining wall going up that right next to their foundations. Next, and just how this like garage is built right on the edge of the alleyway. Next, and, 2-car garage, another recent-ish remodel. Next, that might be it. I don't know. And I guess I don't. Do you have the one of like my backyard? I don't know if I took a great angle on it, but I think like in some of the stuff that was submitted like prior to these ones.
Don't believe I have that available right now, but it was in the project report.
Yeah, well, it's just like like as I described, it's
Very
just like
steep.
you can't access it.
Yeah.
And, but I guess
get it.
that's all I have to
All right.
rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stillwagon. All right, so with that, the matter is closed and the decision is in front of me. So for CVA 2601, I'm going to deny the variance for the reasons stated in the staff report. And I'd just like to point out a few issues. Even if we assumed that we weren't putting in a 10-foot or a detached sidewalk, which creates 15 feet of, compression, even if we assume we're just going to leave room for, say, 5 or a 6-foot attached sidewalk, we'd still have a big problem that your proposed extension would still be way within the front setback. So in a sense, the exact question of where's the zero line is a little bit moot, at least with the current proposal. So there's no question you're asking for a significant variance. That's not really, to me, an issue. And I do agree with the city's analysis with respect to the 4 criteria with respect to hardship. The house has been there. You've lived there a long time, and you don't have sort of a right a preemptive right to expand a building. It's already there. So there's no hardship in the sense of preventing you from doing with that house what you've always been doing with it. And I think the other three analyses are reasonably accurate. I kind of agree with you on the safety issue, but neighborhoods change, and the reason we have setbacks is to keep cars and pedestrians and sidewalks from running into each other. So I understand the safety argument. Finally, you raise a point which comes up in every other variance, especially in the north end, which is previous remodels, examples, and related data. And first of all, except to the extent that we looked at your pictures, it's not part of the record. So, for example, I don't have before me a list of addresses, when the home was built. I don't know whether some of these homes were built before or after the zoning code. I think that one's after, but some of them are before. So each case is highly specific. And so in terms of relying on a diverse set of examples to sort of make law or policy, I generally don't think that's a great idea, because I don't know anything about any of all of these houses that you've shown me. I don't know where they are. I don't know when it happened. I don't know the details of what the city did or did not do. All I know now is that the city code requires that for decisions like this, we set the zero line at detached sidewalk. The city doesn't say, except in cases where we'll never be able to put in a detached sidewalk. It doesn't carve out any room for me to say, well, it's so super steep and all these other houses will never be able to put in a detached sidewalk. So I get to change the rules for the purpose of this calculation. The city code does not say that. And so in this particular case, I'm just going to have to abide by what the code says we do here. And that's the basis of my decision. So thank you on that one. Okay, on to we're on item 2. So that's CVA 26-4, Rodney Evans at 2201 South Hervey, Mr. Exton.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Gillespie. Before you today is CVA 26-4, located at the intersection of Targhee Street and Hervey Street. The applicant is requesting to maintain the existing sidewalk along Targhee Street, a neighborhood collector which was installed between 2018 and 2020. Additionally, the applicant is requesting to have the setbacks measured from the back of the existing sidewalk rather than the back of the future detached sidewalk. The hardships cited by the applicant are summarized in the project report. Firstly, the project could be redesigned to comply with the standards of the development code, as it is a flat, regularly shaped lot. While Targhee Street does contain lower traffic counts, the area is suited for infill development, which could result in increased vehicles on the roadway. Lastly, traffic volume is not considered a characteristic of the site to justify a variance. As such, the planning team recommends denial, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present? You are up.
Good evening, Mr. Gillespie. Ben Semple with Rodney Evans and Partners, 1450 West Bannock Street, 83702. Appreciate your time this afternoon. Appreciate the city's staff report and the feedback that we received. Wanted to talk a little bit more about our variance request. Just to show the vicinity map a little bit more, we're approximately halfway between Owyhee and Shoshone Streets, along the south side of Targhee.
Right.
This just shows a little bit more. You can see some of Vista over there and a little further to the west.
Right.
This is the current zoning, just kind of showing this. One of the things I wanted this to point out, and I know that you can't see it unless I point over here. Our subject parcel is the hatched one here. The cross hatched. Just to the west of it is a PUD that was approved. I believe it was 2012, 2014. That has a redevelopment of single family homes just to the west. This large area here to the east is a large apartment complex. And this large mass here is a mobile home park that's kind of been converting to a manufactured home park. A lot of those homes have been renovated, new home or new roofs on them. Looks like they've done a really good job of improving that site.
Mhm.
This is kind of a zoom in here, specifically what we're requesting to allow to remain. As Doug mentioned, ACHD completed a project along this between Owyhee and Shoshone Street between 2018 and 2020. And they chose to install 5-foot wide detached sidewalks on both sides of Targhee Street. Some of the homes in proximity to that sidewalk would preclude the installation of detached sidewalk. This one, I just want to show a little bit more of the red X's are projects that have recently redeveloped or have been their lot lines adjusted so that it really impacts the ability to install anything different along Targhee Street. I did pull up this area of stability and change. This small red dot right here is our site. What I wanted to point out is that while it does fall in the area 2 of change in stability, that is an area that anticipates some infill and redevelopment, but is not an area that is anticipating significant change. And then it is surrounded, the green is area stability. While it does seem like a fairly large area, north of Targhee is R1C zone, south along where we are is R2. What I didn't mark here, R2 to the south, there's a duplex that was built there recently, and then another, it's kind of a PUD. I think it might be a condo.
Ben, can you tell me one more time what the red X's mean? Can you just? run
Those
that
are
by me?
properties that, in looking at the kind of the geometry as well as the recent permitting on that have been recently developed, and what I don't anticipate as being areas or lots that, unless you had a major assemblage by someone, would be really open for redevelopment along this street. I just want to show primarily this is areas adjacent to us. This all has existing sidewalk as well. This was the mobility plan that I submitted. Our site is here. It's a little harder to see. What this is demonstrating is that the yellow lines are continuous attached sidewalk. So from our site, you can get over to the neighborhood activity center that is there at what is Targhee going east, but it hits Targhee at the light and then turns on Broxton down to Cherry Lane. Ona is a local street that you can turn off of Vista, but there's not a traffic light. And what this is demonstrating also is that when this apartment complex was constructed, and what I believe are condos along the edge, it basically disconnected Targhee from Vista. And then as you go further west down Targhee, you get a point right here where you come up to Roosevelt, and I have some pictures that demonstrate this, where it is right within the influence of the Reidenbach Canal. I think it's the Reidenbach Canal right here. This section of Targhee is designated as a collector in the master street map. In talking with ACHD, what it sounds like is that the city of Boise provides some recommendations on the future road classifications here. Because this is designated as a neighborhood collector, ACHD had some traffic counts on this. So east of Owyhee Street, let me jump back real quick. So we're Owyhee and Shoshone is here. So east of Owyhee, which our site is right in the middle of. When they completed their sidewalk project, they did a traffic count over 24 hours. They had 407 vehicle trips. 1 AM peak eastbound, 13 westbound AM peak, and then 24 PM peak eastbound, 19 peak westbound. When I look at other local area or right in the immediate vicinity, Cherry Lane to the south is also a collector west of Wilper Street. Wilper is right here. Sorry, right here. So right here on Cherry. 1,092 in 24 hours. And then if you look at Nez Perce, which is north of the site, is up here, and that connects all the way from Vista over to Roosevelt. they had 1,455 and 1,484 vehicle trips. That is very much in line with what you'd consider a collector handling traffic. Our level of service would be A for a collector on that portion of Targhee. We believe that this section of Targhee is misclassified as a residential collector, primarily because it is so disconnected down here. It says Targhee in the staff report connects from Vista to Orchard. Targhee doesn't, I mean, you can turn at Targhee, you come down to Broxton, go to Cherry. You could jump up to Targhee and maybe get over here. The more logical pathway for a collector is Nez Perce to Roosevelt, and then you come up. Targhee does continue to Orchard, but you'd have to turn, go down Roosevelt south quite a ways to get past the golf course and then go across. It really is a very disconnected collector through this area. I want to show some pictures of the condition. I was on this side of the intersection looking back to the east. So this is Targhee as it starts dropping back down. As you can see here, the intersection, it's uncontrolled on Roosevelt. It's kind of a interesting little yield kind of four-way intersection, if you will. There's a very large slope here along the side as you come down Targhee. It's also a 20-mile-an-hour speed zone here. Is no parking on either side of pavement. That's very well signed. And then as you get down into this section here, there's a retaining wall. As you get further, this is looking back west, looking up that hill. This is standing on the west side of the intersection looking across. There's not a lot of vehicle traffic that goes across. That turns into Hillcrest Drive that goes by Hillcrest Country Club. This is kind of a little bit better shot looking back west as you come up the hill, proximity of homes on the north side, and this slope up to a canal, which I can only assume is within the canal easement, which would really pretty much preclude any sidewalk of any kind going up that road. Took these pictures along our frontage. This is at the west end of the manufactured home park here. It actually gets about to this point. And then there's continuous sidewalk all the way along. Our site is right here. So this is in really nice condition. What you'll also notice along Targhee here is all of the vehicular connections of these homes directly to Targhee. Typically, as you're aware, collector and direct vehicular connections from lots to collectors are usually frowned upon. There are no east-west alleys in here to provide alley loaded. So all of these homes are either taking access directly from Targhee, or if they happen to be on a corner like this lot is, they take access off of that lesser classified. Here's our site here, and this is just more sidewalk going down to the east. You can see where Targhee dead ends here, but then sidewalk continues up and across down Ona. This is the site. One of the things that is pointed out in the staff report is that tree removal and utility location is often a standard of redevelopment. We are fully aware of that standard. What we have requested this variance to do is to try to save this tree at the corner. This is a approximately 30-inch caliper tree. It is very mature. It is in very great form. It provides for a lot of shade, and it is saved in our plan that we have. A 10-foot wide detached sidewalk, because of overhead power that you can see, would put a 10-foot planter strip, a 10-foot wide detached sidewalk. That tree gets eliminated. This is our site plan right now. That tree is right here. We also can save an on-site 14-inch tree that is very nice. And we're saving a 40-inch tree at this corner. There is a tree here that falls within the building footprint. I'll try to move through this pretty quickly. We're taking access as far south. There is a setback here, gravity irrigation that runs down this way up to the corner and then crosses this street. There's a power pole in this location right here, gravity irrigation box. I put this together. This is the impact of the 10-foot sidewalk on the project. This is the.
Thank you. Hold on just a second.
So we're eliminating about half of the, just under half of the building along the north side. when I put together a single family project just to see what this looked like, more pavement, more building, and that is the impact to what that 10-foot sidewalk would do. And for the sake of what would a redeveloped project look like, I want to go back and just look at this too real quick. This is a 3-story building. We have approximately 6,645 square feet of landscape. That's 60% of the site. We have just over 1,500 square feet of outdoor open space that's usable. We're saving 84 caliper inches of trees, taking out a 32-inch tree. We have 17 parking spaces for 16 units, 1 bedroom or studio. This is what one looks like with a 10-foot detached sidewalk. It is an 8 1-bedroom, 6 studio units, 13 parking spaces for 14 units. This is a 4-story building. We have just over 1,000 square feet of outdoor usable space. We've reduced our landscape area on the site, and we are removing 76 caliper inches and retaining 40 caliper inches. Our opinion is that the negative impacts on the neighborhood and tree removal from this site, it makes for a less positive project. It provides less housing units that the city is looking for. We also got feedback during our neighborhood meeting that the neighbors didn't even want the original sidewalk that's currently installed. And they were very much in favor of this variance because it would not conflict with existing facilities. One last point I wanted to make is that when you look at this, you're talking about pedestrian safety and comfort. A 10-foot multi-use pathway here. If you're riding your bike down here and you have to transition back to a 5-foot attached condition, and you have a pedestrian that's on the 5-foot that's making this transition between a power pole and an irrigation box, there's a potential someone ends up out here in the road, where we feel that a 5-foot continuous sidewalk, for one, most people on bikes aren't getting on those. And it actually creates a less safe condition for the neighborhood and the general public. I did kind of talk about the undue hardship of some adjacent facilities not being able to be installed. We feel like it places an undue hardship on the site to put 10-foot sidewalk here, knowing that there has been recent redevelopment in the area. ACHD did a pretty massive project here, and we feel that it goes against the sustainability goals of the city to remove perfectly good sidewalk, cut down trees, increase our heat island effect in the area, and effectively reduce the aesthetics of this neighborhood. We like to be the city of trees, and I will leave it at that and stand for questions.
Great, thank you. So a couple of questions for the city. So the process to designate Targhee as a connector is made by ACHD in consultation with the city. Is that correct?
Mr. Gillespie, it is, I believe, put together by Compos and presented to ACHD, and the city of Boise does provide impact
Right.
or feedback on the
Right.
master street designations.
But the formal decision is made by ACHD. Is that correct? Okay, so this is the wrong venue to try and change the designation of the street. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Setting that issue aside, if we treat Targhee as the next level down, so it's a connector, and I guess the level under it is just local, how would that change this application and the way the city views this application?
Mr. Gillespie, I would still stand by my original recommendation since
For a
it is
detached sidewalk?
for detached sidewalk. Yes,
Because
the
we just
difference
heard
would
an
be five.
application on a local street,
Mhm.
right? The previous one, and essentially we had to accept the predicate that, or the stipulation that the detached sidewalk was the basis we wanted to move forward.
Correct.
All right. So Ben, hearing that, so let me just make sure. So we had, you had extensive testimony and evidence on why you think Targhee should not be a connector. Is that right? I mean, that was essentially your argument is if Targhee is not a connector, then somehow a detached sidewalk is more appropriate to keep. Is that essentially your argument?
Mr. Gillespie, I think in part, yes. I mean,
Okay.
and I received feedback directly from Mindy Wallace with ACHD.
Yeah.
That ACHD is provided, the city wanted this to be a neighborhood collector, is what she told me.
Right.
So, and I
for
know, but we're not,
purpose, I
we're not
don't
debating.
care.
Right.
Right. I mean,
So-
all I know is what I got.
Yeah, so I think that my justification for this was, four parts really. There's a hardship in that other areas adjacent to this have already developed pre-code rewrite. It would a 5-foot wide detached sidewalk be less impactful on this project? It sure would. We also believe that keeping the existing actually retains a more safe pedestrian environment for the overall neighborhood and negatively impacts the neighborhood and the property and the general public less.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. All right. Next person up, if they're here and want to talk, is the Vista Neighborhood Association. Is there anyone here from the Vista Neighborhood Association? Sorry, I started asking questions before I called for them, but they're not here. Okay, good. So let me think if I have any more questions. I don't. Okay, so we'll go to public testimony. So is there anyone here? I don't have anybody signed up. Is there anyone here tonight, either in person or online, who wants to testify on this matter? So either of you guys can testify too if you want for 3 minutes. Okay. Hearing none. All right. Mr. Semple, now you have 5 minutes for rebuttal. And I know you're going to take it, so have it.
Mr. Gillespie, thanks. Ben Semple,
Thank you,
1450
sir.
West Bannock Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. Doug, if I could get you to pull up my presentation just real quick. I wanted to reinforce just kind of the justification that we put together for the granting of this. So we believe that, due to the existing adjacent development, the expansion of a 10-foot sidewalk outside of this project would not be feasible. And therefore, a lot of these properties adjacent would not be able to install it. And, they would either not propose a project or a redevelopment because they don't need to, or they'd be getting denied and you would have a 5-foot attached sidewalk. We do think that removal of the sidewalk goes against the sustainability goals of the city, as well as removal of sidewalk to put sidewalk back in, which is a hardship. We also feel like there is a hardship in that this lot is impacted substantially, where we have 16 attainable housing units here. We could get to 14, we could get to 6 single family. Regardless, the cost of that housing goes up, and the increase in heat island effect goes up. I'm not going to talk about the designation of Targhee Street. We don't think that this is in conflict with the public interest or creates a material negative impact. We think that the not granting the variance and a detached sidewalk creates more of a conflict with the public interest, and would not be appropriate for the frontage along here. And again, not a special right or privilege. We believe that there are impacts of other parcels and the canal easement that would preclude other properties from even being able to accommodate that sidewalk, and it would not be appropriate. And therefore, this is not a special right because other properties in the vicinity could enjoy that same variance because they can't support it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So matters before the examiner. So with respect to CVA 26-4, I'm going to deny the variance for the reasons stated in the staff report. And I'd like to say just a few things. As in the previous case, a permit on one property, it is hard for major elements of a decision process to depend on things or on other properties. So the permit process is designed to consider the factual record around a given property and again, making arguments about what someone may or may not do in the future at some property, in some cases miles away, is difficult for me to know how to do that. Again, I don't know any of the facts or circumstances about any of the other properties on Targhee that you're discussing because they're not part of my record. My second comment is where the canal makes that really sharp turn and the road comes up and right at the edge of Hillcrest Golf Course where the big green tank is. That's a long way in development terms from your property. And again, we're speculating. Yes, it doesn't look to me now like there'll ever be a detached sidewalk or a big multi-use pathway going all the way to Orchard because of that pinch point in particular. But again, you're asking me to speculate about the deep future, and I don't think for me that's appropriate. And as I've always said, right, variances last forever, right? Forever. We have to live with these decisions the next 100 years on Targhee. The city, in its wisdom, has decided on this detached sidewalk policy. In the last 3 meetings, I've probably heard half a dozen issues with that. I, from a policy point of view, would have recommendations to the city, but unfortunately, right now, I'm not in policy role. I'm in like, what's the law say? So that's the basis of my decision. I thank you guys for building that. I think it's a neat development in a great place, and I think it's still going to be great, even though we have to, move some stuff around a little bit to make it fit. So thank you very much. Okay, onward, maybe not upward. The last one on the agenda tonight is item 6. This is DRH 25-358. The applicant is Mr. Gouda, like the cheese. I got it, sir. Gouda. It's more like Goethe, like the author. 25802 West Bannock. We're going to hear first from Ms. Manoj, and then presumably we'll hear from this gentleman. So, Ms. Manoj, you are on.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gillespie. Before you is an appeal of DRH 25-00358, an administrative design review approval for a 10-unit multifamily development located at 2502 West Bannock Street. The subject property is an approximately 0.28 acre parcel located at the northwest corner of the intersection of North 25th Street and West Bannock Street. The property is zoned R3, residential urban, and the land use is high density. The development consists of 10 multiple family units in 2 buildings. The building along Bannock Street contains 6 units, and the building along 25th Street contains 4 units. Parking is provided by a surface parking lot located behind the buildings and accessed from the alley along the north. On November 20th, 2025, the design review application was submitted by the applicant. The planning director issued an administrative approval, and on January 12th, 2026, the application was appealed. The appellant has listed 6 grounds for appeal. The first is that the project encroaches into the required 10-foot front and 15-foot street side R3 setbacks. As indicated in the appeal memo, site-specific condition 1A of the design review approval requires compliance with the allowed encroachments table in 1104-03.3, and all setbacks must be shown to be met prior to issuance of building permits. The appellant's second and third grounds for appeal are that the project does not provide the required planter islands within the parking lot, and the project does not provide enough street trees nor meet the tree mitigation requirements. As described in the appeal memo, an alternative compliance request was approved as part of the design review approval, allowing for alternative arrangement of landscape in the parking areas. All required street trees are being provided, and the applicant is meeting all tree mitigation requirements. The fourth appeal ground is that the garbage containers are not screened from pedestrian view. The design review action letter includes 2 standard conditions, 6 and 27, which require screening of all trash receptacles, and the applicant must demonstrate compliance in order for the building permits to be issued. The fifth appeal ground is that buildings are not designed to fit the established neighborhood, and the Bannock facade is unbalanced. As described in the appeal memo, the planning team does find the building design comply with the relevant findings for approval in section 1105.05.3 D3. The sixth appeal ground is that the HVAC units are not screened and will be visible from the public right-of-way. Site-specific condition 1G of the design review action letter requires all mechanical equipment to be screened, and the applicant will be required to show the screening method prior to receiving building permits. With the conditions of approval, the application will meet all requirements of the zoning code and the design review guidelines. The appellant has not demonstrated an error in the administrative review. Therefore, the planning team recommends the hearing examiner deny the appeal and uphold the approval. Thank you, and I can stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Manouch. So first so the order here is a little kludgy. So first we'll hear from the appellant, then the applicant, and each get 10 minutes to discuss the appeal. So can the appellant come forward? You're Mr. Good.
Yes.
Gouda.
Good. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Mr. Gouda, you have 10 minutes and then we'll see where we're at.
Okay.
Okay.
Will Gooda, 2509 West Bannock Street.
Thank you, sir.
So I live across the street from whatever ultimately gets built here. Let's see, is this thing so Caitlin did a good job summarizing my appeal. The issues listed were setback requirements, encroachments into those, parking landscape requirements not being met, tree mitigation not being met, HVAC units encroach into setbacks and aren't properly screened. Garbage containers encroach into setbacks and are not properly screened, and an unbalanced design. I think all of these issues stem from a larger issue, which is a design that is driven by packing as many units as possible and even more than code will allow onto the parcel to maximize profits while spending as little as possible. Rather than a thoughtful design that fits into the context of the established neighborhood, which is one of the overview guidelines from the design review manual. They are just trying to pack as much as they can on this parcel. One example just of how this plays out is they are trying to take advantage of the 5-foot side yard setback. So they have a strange step down in design that provides a very unbalanced look to the building just so that they can encroach closer to the neighboring property. A little history that, I don't know, Mr. Gillespie, if you were around, you may know that this has gone through a couple iterations. The neighborhood fought back on a prior 5-unit design for a while. And so this the 10 units is also not well received. I know there've been a few letters received from neighbors. I know some of my neighbors are here now, and I've been getting texts about more people who said they sent letters that aren't in the file. So maybe they were received late or there was some late correspondence there. Regarding setbacks, like Caitlin said, the ground floor meets the setback requirements, but the second and third floors protrude about 1.5 feet into the setbacks. The fear with look, Caitlin did condition a lot of these items in her staff report, but the fear is that just conditioning them like, okay, you have to meet setbacks, you have to meet parking requirements, you need to meet tree mitigation, that totally changes the design of the whole project. And then what was the design review approval for? If they simply pull back the red elements to the setback line, then they've lost all facade articulation and they no longer meet a different design review requirement. So I think there was too many issues here to just approve with conditions. I think that they need to go back through design review and make sure that when they meet all these requirements, that they still are meeting facade articulation and have a good looking project. Caitlin brought up the parking landscaping. They are not meeting code for the terminal planters. She mentioned that there was alternative compliance, but they reduced all the terminal planters from, they're supposed to be 8 feet wide, and they reduced them down to 3 feet, 4 feet, and 6 feet. They still are only providing a 5-foot setback on the side property line. So I don't know where they've enhanced any other landscaping on this project to try to compensate for the reduced landscape planters, but I don't see any real means for alternative compliance or attempt to comply with that. And if they reduce or if they actually provide the required parking, then they'll lose a parking stall, and then they no longer meet their minimum parking count. That's why I feel like these things should be addressed now prior to just putting a bunch of conditions on and letting them move forward. Regarding tree mitigation, they're removing 4 trees from the site, totaling 101 caliper inches. These are some snapshots from their plans showing the trees in red they're removing and highlighting their caliper inches down below. They claim that 3 of the trees are damaged or dying, so they shouldn't have to meet mitigation requirements. They don't provide any arborist assessment to support this claim. The 8-inch spruce is dead. I definitely agree with that one, but I don't think that the Siberian elms, the 48-inch and 14-inch, are dead, and even the photos they provided don't appear to be dead trees. So, community forestry also commented on this. They said that they don't concur with the mitigation calculations as submitted, and that was in the report under agency comments. I think if they remove the linden and the 2 Siberian elms, they should be required to provide proper tree mitigation on the site. Right now they are, which would be 93 inches of tree mitigation. They're only providing 36 inches total, leaving a deficit of 57 inches left to mitigate. Per their design review narrative, they cannot meet the tree mitigation requirements due to tight constraints on the site. However, the tight constraints are self-imposed by trying to fit 10 units on a single lot in a mostly single-family neighborhood. So I don't think that should be justification to violate code. One other thing on tree mitigation, the developer doesn't provide trees along 25th Street. In the DR narrative, they say it's because ACHD will not allow them. Community forestry comments say that's not an ACHD policy, nor is a city code restriction. So I guess maybe just some clarification on whether or not I'd like to see street trees installed along 25th. And it seems like maybe there's some confusion on what ACHD and community forestry will allow. HVAC units are all in the front yards. You can see the setbacks there, the 10 feet on Bannock and 15 feet on 25th. And the HVAC units are right by everyone's front door, in the little red boxes encroaching into those setbacks. I don't think that an HVAC unit is allowed to encroach into front or side yard setbacks, but I could be wrong. It's not listed as a permitted encroachment in the table listed here. Also, code requires that HVAC units are integrated into the design and screened from public view. I don't believe that they are integrated in the design. I know there's a condition to screen them. I think for the sake of the neighborhood, I think that they should be moved to the back of the building. These are already tiny front yards, 10 foot by 13 foot. So I think for the enjoyment of people on the nearby sidewalk and for a family in this home, I think that the HVAC unit should be moved to the back of the building somewhere. And no other homes in this established neighborhood have HVAC units in their front yards. The garbage containers encroach into the setback. And again, I don't believe that that's a listed or as a permitted encroachment into setbacks. It says the garbage containers are should be located to minimize the negative visual, odor, and physical impacts of the street. They're located kind of right by the sidewalk on the north side of the building there. So I don't think that they're located appropriately, and they're not fully enclosed around their perimeter. I think Caitlin responded that they didn't have to be enclosed on the north side because there was an alley there. But given that this is the corner lot and that alley is actually right next to a sidewalk, I think that some special attention should be given to them. So in general, I guess the main basis of my appeal is that there's too many conditions, too many encroachments and violations that are going to have a major impact on this project and this site. If they were to actually meet code, I think the design is going to be substantially changed, and they should have to go back through the design review process to make sure that it is still a well-designed project that meets all of the other design review requirements once they address all of these issues. I think that in general, the design is not conducive to the neighborhood or congruous with everything else around it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Is the original applicant here tonight?
I am.
All right. If you could state your name and address for the record, you have 10 minutes and then we'll see where your testimony's at.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Commissioner Gillespie. Andrew Wheeler, 9201 West State Street, Suite 102, Boise, Idaho, 83714. And I apologize for joining virtual today. We had an unexpected birth of our baby boy last night, so a week early, and that's what puts me here and virtual. So I really appreciate the conversation that we're having, around the concerns of the neighbors of the property. We strive to produce communities that enhance the areas that they're located in, as well as the general residents and quality of life of the future tenants. I did meet with the appellant on site while I was placing the signs, and we had a conversation on site to, discuss his concerns and go over those. So I'd like to just real quick, and I also appreciate the exhibit of specific code concerns that were brought up. So I'll share my screen now, and we can go through those just kind of one line item at a time. So to address kind of just starting at the north here, well, to step back, I would say that, in general, the site location and site area is, let me pull up here to a overall picture here. So we are in the west of downtown. This is a fairly dense area. You're directly east of 27th Street, west of the heart of the downtown. And the city has zoned this property to be R2. They want to see density in this area and they want more housing. So that's the intent and the scope that we're looking through as we look to develop this single family property that has a lot of vacant land and, it could be better utilized to future housing and more housing. So that's the overall perspective that we have on the project. There were a few errors in the plans that had the level 2 setbacks projecting out or the level 2 exterior walls projecting out into the setback. That has been revised. You can see here in this rendering, and we have a set of plans into Caitlin that addresses each of those setback concerns. So there are no concerns of the setback nature. We did keep the articulation and the change in material. So overall, it's the same aesthetic and the same look as what was previously presented and approved. On the arborist report, as far as landscaping, we did provide an arborist report so that it was part of the previously approved drawings. On the parking area, so yes, it is a dense infill site. We do have alley access up here on the north. And what we're doing, we're hiding the vehicle, right? Behind the building, front porches facing the street, new urbanism, that type of product that I think does enhance, puts porches on the street, eyes on the street, and increases safety, that type of a general direction. The alternative compliance, and Caitlin, feel free to help me out here if I'm mistaken, but we do provide a landscape strip. It's not 8 feet, it is 5 feet off of the alley here. And then we do have a landscape strip down here on this end, which is not directly adjacent to the parking. It's at the terminus of the drive aisle. And then we also have this additional parking landscape strip here in the middle of the parking area. The exhibit listed needing to have 8 feet on the west boundary, which is incorrect, and that's a 5-foot setback, which meets code, as well as here where we provide this 6 feet. The 8 foot that we're getting the alternative compliance only applies to the terminus of the ends of the parking. As far as the landscape is concerned on the mechanical units, so we currently do screen each unit with a 3 to 4 foot tall planting, as well as that's 5 to 6 foot in width. So you can see each mechanical unit does meet code and provides that screening. On the trash enclosure screening up here on the north, so we are not screening off the alley. We know we need that open for trash pickup and ease of access, but we do have a fence that is on the east, south, and west. So that is fully screened from the public way or a pedestrian's view here on 25th Street. The street trees is an interesting one. So essentially the situation is this landscape strip is not wide enough to be able to put in additional street trees. So we've gone back and forth with ACHD and they essentially ACHD won't let us put trees in there when we've tried to. What we are doing is we're putting 2 additional trees in this location and we're working with Veolia as far as easement or proximity to these water lines that are coming into the property, but so that our civil engineer and landscape architect are working on that. And we do plan to put 2 additional trees in this location. As far as not meeting the full scope of the tree mitigation, we do meet code because code allows for funds to be contributed to the tree fund for anything that is not able to be mitigated on site, which is what we're proposing here. On the general parking requirements, so there are some comments that the applicant did not directly bring up in his presentation, but there's concern about the number of parking stalls required. And really that's this isn't the hearing for that, right? That's a planning and zoning hearing and we do meet the parking requirements. So we're not here to discuss, building height or, density or anything to that effect. This is a design review hearing. We're happy to address those issues, but we currently do meet code for the parking provided and required. So I don't see any issue to further have discussion on that. The one thing that I did really appreciate that the applicant brought up on the right here, you have our prior plan where we were connecting to the 3-story volume and the 2-story volume just with a shed roof here. We've since revised that to, let me pull up the revised plan here. And that is right here to essentially lower that so it doesn't come up all the way. That it's a cricket roof here for positive drainage. You get more of a peak on this 2nd-story element. So I think that's certainly a positive impact on the design and what these hearings are really designed to do is get community feedback and have an impact on the design, which is what we've taken that to heart and provided that on that elevation. So as far as a few renderings of the project, so this is the revised project meeting the setback limitations. Here, unfortunately, we did have this popped out, this level 2, and had a little more articulation. I still think it's a good looking product for the proportion that it is, height and width ratio. But we did have this previously popped out. So we pulled that back in. Same on this side. We pulled these back in off of 25th, maintained our articulation of the change in material. So overall, the general aesthetic remained the same. And then here the same process on Bannock Street where we've kept the articulation, pulled back in level 2 and meet the setback requirements. So overall, I think I also heard a lot of I don't think type of comments, which aren't very specific to code. Happy to address anything that is specific to code. But what we see in these revisions is some positive feedback and the system working how it should, where we're getting community feedback, making intelligent design decisions to address that. But there's also a level of a personal preference that's being aired in this appeal that really doesn't have a place in code. So that's all I have, but I'll stand for any questions.
All right. Thank you very much. Stay by the phone. Finally, is there anybody from the Weston Neighborhood Association that would like to testify on this matter tonight? Okay. Seeing none, it's question time for me. So I'm going to try. So there's 6 specific
Mr.
grounds.
Gillespie, sorry to interrupt you there. I do have a Mary Rice. Just want to make sure that she's not with the neighborhood association real quick.
Okay.
My husband's on his way. He's in the neighborhood association. He's trying to get there. Is he there? Brian Shanowski?
Oh, I do see a Brian. I will allow him to talk. One moment, please.
He's driving though, so.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, there he is. He's in the audience. Never mind.
He's in the audience. Oh, okay. So let me ask again. Is there an official representative of the West End Neighborhood Association that would like to speak on this matter tonight? Okay, then you can speak in general open mic. Okay, so hearing none. A couple of questions. I'll try and organize them by the 6 objections, so to speak, from Mr. Good. First of all, a question for the city for Ms. Manu. So the appellant is saying, in a sense, and we've heard this one before, that your conditions, particularly with respect to setback, it changed the way the front of the building looks, the articulation, and he's saying therefore it should get a full recycle, a full new car wash through the whole design review process. What's the city's perspective on that argument as a grounds for appeal?
Through the design review process, it's pretty common that we have design review changes required through our review. If it was a big major change that we really felt would change the project, we would ask for revisions before approving it. In this case, our requirements were pretty minor and we felt that the applicant could address them without changing the design substantially. So we were comfortable approving it and asking for the revisions before building permit submittal.
All right. The next question for the city. So the applicant did present new, what do you call it, drawings or elevations that showed flatter front. So you already have them. So you just mechanically, what will happen next? But like when they do their final plan submission for the permit, do you look at them and make sure that, okay, yeah, that's okay?
Mr. Gillespie, correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next question on the tree islands or the parking, the tree islands in the parking lot, right? So it's the city's perspective, and you might come up because I'm going to give you a chance to chip in. Let me first back up. Mr. Good, do you want to chip in on what the city said with respect to how it thinks about changing those setbacks and the need to do a new car wash versus just approving it at final permit?
Sure. We'll go to 2509 West Bannock Street. I understand what she's saying. What I saw, and that's the first time I'm seeing these updated drawings.
Right.
I believe that articulation needs to be at least 12 inches in depth. And it looked like all they really did was pull that back. So it's just a teeny little bump and it doesn't actually meet articulation requirements anymore.
So does the city actually have like a specific definition of articulation requirements, or is it just a subjective idea of, yeah, it doesn't look like one giant flat wall?
Mr. Gillespie, we do have a list of items that we can use as articulation elements in the design review guidelines and code. And then it's up to the design review planner to see if there's enough elements incorporated and if they align with the idea presented.
But
in
it's
the code.
essentially a subjective
Correct.
process. All right, thank you. Okay, next question on the parking islands and the trees. So you referenced that there is code that says you have to have these landscape elements in the parking lots. But you also recognize that the code allows from some alternative compliance, and that in this case, the applicant had met those alternative compliance requirements. Is that correct?
Mr. Gillespie, correct.
Okay. Do you have any reason to dispute that they didn't meet the alternative compliance requirements?
I guess what are the alternative compliance? In my understanding, that means that they're going above and beyond in some other way or somewhere else on the site to provide more landscaping. And all that appeared is that, and there's actually 3 terminal planters, one's going in the north-south direction, that don't meet the 8-foot requirement. So where else on the site are they going above and beyond, typical?
Let me ask her.
Sorry.
So Ms. Manu, where else on the site, where is the alternative compliance occurring?
Mr. Gillespie, the alternative compliance requirement is to provide an alternative that's equally beneficial in meeting the requirements of the code. So in this case, typically the applicant would have terminal landscape planters with trees. Because of some of the arrangement of the site and because we had some concerns about visibility with people turning into the parking lot and having people walk through the parking lot, We did approve some smaller landscape islands that have landscape in them. And then to kind of offset that, the applicant is providing additional trees within that west buffer beyond what the code would require.
Thank you. Okay, next question. So the applicant, both the city and the applicant recognize there's a deficit. So this is item 3, tree caliper calculations. By the way, I have done that. So we're 57 inches short. The applicant stated that he is availing himself of the section of the code that allows them to contribute to the tree fund for the city, which they use for planning. Do you have any reason to believe that that's not what the code says, or that he's wrong, or like?
I guess I thought that section of code was if there were constraints on the site that wouldn't allow additional trees, then you could pay into the tree fund. The constraint, there's not.
But you're saying he made those constraints because of the size of the building. He wants to put
It's a
got it.
self-imposed.
Okay,
So he
Yeah.
shouldn't be able to use that loophole to get out of providing trees to the neighborhood.
interesting philosophical question. On the trash screening, I didn't really I didn't have any issues with that. On the HVAC units, so this was an interest. So just straight up, are HVAC units permitted in setbacks?
Mr.
That I
Gillespie?
don't know.
Yes, we do permit HVAC
Okay.
systems and setbacks.
And do you think a bush that's may or may not lose leaves in the winter is adequate screening?
Mr. Gillespie, we're usually looking for something that's evergreen if they're using plants for screening. So the applicant would need to show that during building permit submittal.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much for both of you. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being willing to engage in the back and forth. You'll get a chance later for rebuttal. Okay, so let's see, where are we at? We're through all the intro stuff. I've done my questions, so now it's time for public testimony. So let's do that. So I have 2 people on this sign up sheet. We'll do those 2 first. Then we'll do open mic here in the room. Then we'll do whoever's online. It looks like we have a few people online. So the first person on my sign up sheet is Hollis Vanderwall. And then Tyler LeBlanc.
I don't know how good I'm going to be at this, but
Pull
I'm
that
gonna-
down a little bit. You'll do just fine.
I'm going to try. I live at 2421 West Jefferson Street. I've owned the house for 45 years, single dwelling. I own 2 more houses, 2501, which is the alley is going to cut, and then one next door, 20. And so what it's going to do is put a whole bunch of people in an area that has never had this. I mean, why are we having apartment buildings when we have single family dwellings? And we had done this before COVID and got them down to 8 at least. Now we're back up to 10. I mean, that's a lot of this little narrow alley that they think they can drive down, and all these people can drive in and out of that little. It's going to be, and besides all the kids that walk to school and all the things that it's a high neighborhood North End homes. And I've been there for 45 years and never have we ever had anything come even close to this. Okay, that's probably the best I can do.
Thank you. You did great. Next on the list is Tyler LeBlanc. And while he's rolling up there, I just want to make sure it looks like Lana McLean crossed her name off. Okay, so you're okay. You're always welcome. Please, Tyler.
Hi, Mr. Gillespie. My name is Tyler LeBlanc. I live at 1804 West Idaho Street, Boise, Idaho 83702. I live in the west downtown neighborhood, but right on the edge of the West End neighborhood, and walk this area frequently with my dogs. I'm also a developer, so I'm not related to this project, but my company and I have built over 1,000 units across Mountain West, and I pride ourselves on the developments we have done. I'm here to argue, I think probably more about the specifically the constraint on the trees and how that constraint is self-imposed. Specifically to the appeal, overall, I disagree with this project and the size of the project. This is a large single-family lot in a neighborhood with all single-family homes. There's another project that recently has been working through approvals at 19th and Jefferson Street, which Ben Sample, who was here earlier, is a part of. And Ben and I have talked frequently about that project. And although I have empathy and compassion for the neighbors of that project that were against it, I can see how that project fits in that specific spot versus in this spot where it just does not fit for the type of project. The fact of the size of the lot and the constraint itself is self-driven. At the most, there should be a 2-unit project for this type of location and the level of foot traffic you have. You have the Greek church about a block away. This road is actually a very popular road for kids going to both elementary and middle school, riding their bikes. So the level of car traffic from a 10-unit development in this part of the neighborhood would be detrimental to the safety of others as well. I'll just comment to the original applicant compared to other developers or applicants in the area, such as Ben. I think the outreach has been poor compared to others. If I missed any other meetings, it's because I haven't gotten anything. This is the first one I've seen come up, and I think based on what this meeting specifically is for, that's all I have at this time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room tonight who'd like to testify on this item? Please come forward. If you could just give your name and address for the record, I'd be grateful.
Yes, Brian Shanoski, 2516 West Bannock Street, Boise, Idaho. I'm just here to support the neighbors that are in the room. I'm one of the folks that was mentioned by the appeal applicant who wrote an email that was submitted late, as well as my wife, Mari, who's was on the Zoom call. Just to echo everything that's already been shared, and I go back to being on the board 5 years ago when Blaine Harvey initially put forth a development proposal for 7 units, and we narrowed that down to 5. And here we are today debating the appeal of a 10-unit design, and we could go on and on about the nuances of this appeal, and that's what this is about. But in reality, this is just an unfit project for this lot. It's the only reason it's even being proposed is it's a double lot, and every other lot on the block is a single. When it was sold, there was no notification of the neighborhood that this could be something we're facing. And so here we are. I want you to imagine having this next to you or in your backyard in a North End neighborhood, which is now technically the West End, but it has the same allure to all of us that live there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room tonight who wants to testify? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to online. Is Ms. Rice still available?
Yes.
Ms. Rice, you have up to 3 minutes for your public testimony. Please give your name and address for the record.
My name is Mari Rice. I live at 2516 West Bannock Street.
You can begin.
Okay, I'm just here to support the original appeal, everything that was said in that, and the neighbors in the room as well. Again, I agree that this is just not a great project size for the lot. I highly support dense housing, but it should be right spot and make sense. And I have concerns about the trees, especially cutting down an older linden tree that provides shade in an area that doesn't have a lot of tree canopy. I'm concerned about the sycamore tree being the branches on the west side being compromising the tree health, and also concerned about safety for the children and the alleyway. My own kids use that alleyway frequently for biking, and we have other kids in the area, and 10 cars leaving that lot is just very concerning to me, as well as street parking on a very busy street for kids traveling to school. It's the major thoroughfare for Whittier Elementary. It just those are my primary concerns, which I think align very much with what people have already said. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else online who'd like to testify? Anybody else in the room? Okay, so now it comes to rebuttal time. So the order of rebuttal is the applicant goes first and the appellant gets the last word, I think. So, Mr. Applicant, you are on for up to 5 minutes of rebuttal.
Thank you, Commissioner Gillespie, and yeah, I appreciate everyone's comments on this. Let me share my
Could you
screen
give your
again.
name and address for the record?
Yes, my apologies. Andrew Wheeler, 9201 West State Street, Suite 102, Boise, Idaho 83714. So let me pull up to kind of zoom out here for a second and look at the property from a land use standpoint. So here's the property currently here right on Bannock, and as it was discussed, this is a double lot. It does currently house one home in the middle, off of an alley on a corner lot with 25th and Bannock. So if you zoom out a little bit, you can kind of see the magnitude of commercial uses next to it, right? This is downtown Boise to the east. To the south, you have Main Street and all those commercial uses. Then you have the 27th Street corridor, which has a mix of pocketed mixed use zoning that are highly developed currently. So it's quite a commercial and mixed use thoroughfare that connects to the main arterial of State Street. So you're really, in this pocket of commercial. The reason that this is the city zoning map, and the reason that the city zoned this property to R3 is because of that transition buffer between the high density commercial, the mixed use uses, and the single family residential to the R2. Now, that's just to zoom out and talk through the logic of why this was deemed by the city to be in a position to provide higher density. When we look at, should density happen here, I think as a land use planner, as an architect, as an urban designer, I think that when you look at this property, I'm gonna pull up my aerial here. You have a large lot near downtown Boise and commercial uses and mixed use corridors on a corner with alley access. So from an infill development standpoint, those all check the boxes of where density should be. Now, I'm not saying that the appellants or any of the individuals that live in the area don't have a valid case for why they believe what they do. But just from a strictly land use and how a city develops standpoint, there's a lot of reasons why this does make sense to have a higher density project at this location. The depth of articulation, just to jump into that, so it is somewhat subjective in the code. We do currently provide 8 inches of articulation. So that is if you look at these drawings here, just so we're all clear on the same page, I just had it up, but right here. So this is that 8 inches that we do step back. And, the goal of articulation is to provide a change in material, a change in shadow line, and activate the facade. And you can see here on the right, barring this revision that has already occurred, that does happen with that inset. I think the concern with lack of articulation happens when you have 1 or 2 inches and it's a one flat surface and it doesn't actually provide that clean change of material. So that's how we're addressing the articulation component. As far as the mechanical screening, when we look at the site plan, so currently on the landscape plan, this plant is a auto leucan tree, which is a English laurel, and it's a compacted evergreen shrub that offers year-round interest with glossy dark green leaves and showy, fragrant cream white flower spikes. So it is an evergreen that does provide visual interest and screen concealment of the mechanical unit. On the narrow alley, as far as access to the alley, one of the benefits again of this being the right location for this property is that corner lot. So our entrance to the property is right here off of the alley. So most traffic users would be using this strip right here. Yes, there will be traffic that comes off of 27th into here, but the majority of people, I mean, you have a good access point to an egress on 25th Street. So again, I'm not saying nobody's going to use this, but an alley, I love that an alley is being used by kids. I think that's great. An alley is a utilitarian use that's trash pickup, vehicle storage, parking in the back. The alternative to that is putting garages on the front of 25th and Bannock Street that then now we have a north end with garage entrances, which is the opposite of what new urbanism preaches and what we all like in a community such as the north end, with eyes on the street, porches, and windows, and more of an active pedestrian area. Overall, I think that we've addressed the issues and the concerns, and provided a great project here. Density and development always has challenges. I mean, it's inevitable that people living next door are not going to like what is built right next to it. And we see our job is to be the mediator between those of what's good for the city as a whole and what's good for the project and what's good for the neighborhood. So we're trying to do our best to balance that tightrope and produce a quality solution here. I would say one thing about, okay.
You could go ahead and say one more thing.
Okay. I was just gonna say, the last thing I was just gonna say, as far as the outreach that has been, lacking, we aren't doing anything. I mean, we're meeting the zoning code and we're going through a design review application, which does not require a neighborhood meeting. And I mean, we're going through the process that the city has stated they want these types of projects to go through. And so, I think again, there's a slew of issues here, which are more of a planning and zoning conversation than they are a design review conversation. But I appreciate everyone's time and feedback, and I'd be more than happy to hear other suggestions on ways we could actually overcome these challenges and thoughts on that direction of what we could redesign, such as the appellant's suggestion of redesigning that second story entry, which we did do, and I think does improve the project. So with that, that is all I have.
Mr. Good. So we'll put 5 minutes on the clock and then we'll give you time for one more thing.
Okay. We'll get a 2509 West Bannock Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702.
Thank you, sir.
Andrew, first of all, congrats on the baby. And
thank you.
You're still calling in. Look, I don't think that this is Andrew's fault. I think that he has an out-of-state developer who has tasked him with squeezing as many units as he can on this lot. He's open for suggestions. To be honest, my hope from this appeal was to get it from 10 units down to 9 units. I know that most of the neighbors still won't be happy with that. I actually think 5 units is totally fine for this parcel personally, but I guess my fear that he was just going to pull back the overhangs and then there'd be just a small articulation. And I guess that's what happened. And that's totally discretionary. And Caitlin's deemed that is enough articulation to break up the wall. And I guess that's where it stops, is that I don't have there's nothing I can do if is what I'm hearing. That if the city decides that that's good enough, and the neighbors don't, that it doesn't matter. Is that fair? Okay. Okay.
Just right yet.
Regarding the parking landscaping and the lack of 8-foot terminal planters that are mitigated with some extra trees on the western boundary is almost comical, because they're not meeting their tree requirements. So you're saying they went above and beyond the terminal planter requirement by putting some extra trees in the 5-foot setback that's already code required, but they're not meeting their tree mitigation requirements in the first place. So I guess I don't understand how a alternative compliance was approved to reduce the 3 terminal planters below the 8-foot with a different requirement that actually isn't being met. I don't think it was addressed if garbage enclosures can encroach into setbacks. I guess, and I'd appreciate knowing where it says HVAC units can encroach into front setbacks in code. I couldn't find it, but I'm not a code expert, so I'm just doing the best I can here. And then I guess other than the parking landscape, terminal planters, the tree mitigation happening on site, and not being able to use, we put too many buildings and parking stalls on the site. So we shouldn't have to meet tree mitigation. I still think that's something that should be addressed. Ultimately, I guess the hope here from my side is that probably goes from 10 units to 9 units. I think that it's close to meeting code, but I think that it just, it doesn't quite at the moment. That's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Kevin, make sure I'm done, right? That's it. No, I mean, we're okay. So the matters before me. So, Kevin, can I, or Ms. Manoj, when was this approved by planning and zoning? Because this went through P&Z, right? There's a CUP on this, or
Mr. Gillespie,
how did the general approval occur?
this approval under the new code, the current code only requires an administrative design review application. So this is the only application required.
All right, thank you. Well, let me ask another process question. But the questions of like 10, 9, 5 units, those aren't part of design review. So because it complies with the underlying R3 zone, there doesn't need to be a discussion about that. Is that right?
Mr. Gillespie, correct.
Okay. But the design review process that I'm looking at now doesn't deal with 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Correct.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I understand what is my lane. Okay. Okay. So, so first of all, I'm going to deny the appeal. So I deny the appeal of DRH 25-358 and uphold the director's decision for the reasons stated in their staff report. Now, a couple of just sort of housekeeping stuff. The purpose of this hearing is not to make the density decision. In the old code, that decision would have been made by Planning and Zoning Commission in a P&Z hearing. The new code, if the property or if the application fits the zoning code density designation, then it's approved and it goes to design review. So in a sense, that discussion already happened. That's just the way the new code works. If you catch me on the elevator, I can discuss the policy issues around that. They're obvious. Going through each one of these, I found that the city's position, while it may not be the position I would take on any of your given 6 objections, I think it's understandable, reasonable, and allowed by the code. So I don't think I can overturn the director's decision just based on opinion or differences of opinion on matters of subjective taste. With respect to the tree issue, which I think is actually the applicant's most difficult problem and your best objection, I think the city has decided to take advantage of the alternative compliance procedure. That's the city's purview to do that. They've decided to do that. Again, I don't feel like I can go around and say, nope, you cannot do that, because I don't see where in code it sort of allows me to do that. So for that reason, that's the basis of the decision. All the stuff about the density and is it appropriate and the traffic, that stuff all got handled when that R3 designation got slapped on that piece of property. Right? The way the city works now, once that went down, that's it. In the old days, we would have had a conditional use permit hearing, and all of these a lot of these objections we heard would have come out in that hearing. But as I understand it, that is the current procedure. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm optimistic that it will work out. I've sat up here for almost 16 years on these sorts of things, and they're all over the city, and it seems to be working. And so I wish you all the best and hope that you continue to talk to each other. Thank you very much.